What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of A Couple of Subs. I'm your host, Cody Crane, and with me, as always, my lovely co-host, Kristen Crane, aka Kiki.
What up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Couple of Subs. So we're in Meridian, Mississippi today, my hometown, and I'm excited about our guest on the show today. This was very spur of the moment, literally this morning, just kind of decided to do it as we were passing through town. We've got Liz Wilson, who is the executive director of Mississippi Children's Museum Meridian, and I gotta hand it off to this woman. She is amazing. 6 years ago, she noticed a need in our community. She said, "There's nothing here for my kids. Every time I want to, take my kids to do something fun or educational, I have to go to Jackson or Birmingham and just go, out of the state or travel." And so she, with a few other women, rallied up and made this Children's Museum of Meridian happen. It's a satellite museum of the one in Jackson, and she has never given up. She has seen some rough times, I know, but worked hard and just completely hustled. And 6 years later, seeing it come out of the ground, I know it's an exciting time for everybody.
Yeah, I didn't know. I had heard from Liz, I guess, shoot, several months ago, more than 6 months, maybe even close to a year ago. But I had no clue that she was 6 years deep into this project.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on our way here in separate vehicles and are on our way to Fulton, and you and Liz were just talking, chatting, and said, "Hey, let's do a podcast."
So actually, she called me out on Facebook yesterday, and I didn't see it until this morning. So both Glass Inc. and Ethel Crane are working on the Children's Museum, and she made a post on Facebook about it. It was like, "Look, both of your guys are here today. Cody and Kristen, y'all should come and do an episode." And I was like, "All right, bet. We're coming through town today, so let's do it." So here we are, and I'm ready to get her on the show. What about you?
I am too. Let's get this thing started. Liz, welcome to the show.
You're good.
Come on in, Liz.
Hi. It's good to see y'all.
Yes. Thank you so much for having us here and catching us on the right end.
Yeah.
I can't be professional like this. You guys don't have
I know,
feel
right?
too weird.
I love having them on, but I was not prepared to be on camera today, as you can tell. So I'm gonna leave mine off.
Same here.
Yeah,
That's what makes them good.
That's right.
Hoping
Very
most
spur of the
people are
moment.
just listening in to this podcast.
No, y'all go check it out on YouTube, definitely. So, all right. Well, welcome to the show, Liz. Before we get started, diving into the museum aspect, tell our listeners a little bit about you and your family, your background, all that.
Sure. Well, I am from Meridian and grew up here, but just moved back. Probably time starts to fade away, especially during this pandemic as well. But about 7 years ago, and like you mentioned earlier, we moved to town. We got 3 small kids, and we were looking for ways to engage our children in some really meaningful learning environments and things where they could be at the center of their learning.
Mm-hmm.
We had those experiences elsewhere, and my husband is this is kind of in his field, and he would send me these articles and talk about how important, like we were in this window with our children, of how important it was for them to be exposed to different things, to really develop fully, just even physically with their neurological development. My husband is a neuropsychologist.
Oh, wow.
So it was daunting, and I was like, we've got resources like this around the state, and so that was with other really committed women in our community, Kimberly Dennison and Kim Bowers. We kind of started out on this mission, probably naive, but I think with any great thing, it might be that is one of the ingredients you need. But I kind of jumped ahead, but all that, back to my family. I grew up here. I'd lived away, and we moved back. I have 3 children that started school last week, and I got a middle schooler for the first time, which is a little nerve-wracking. And then I've got a 8-year-old and a 7-year-old, and so a 10-year-old, 8-year-old, and 7-year-old. And and they keep us busy.
You have very sweet, well-behaved children, if I do say so myself.
That's only when we let them out in public.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
So, I guess your journey with I'll call it the MCM project, the Mississippi Children's Museum of Meridian. Your journey there started by you and your husband talking about we got to get to getting while the getting's good, I guess. You know?
There's a limited amount of time there, yeah.
Like the clock's ticking here. We got to have something that can teach our kids in a fun way that they're excited about, and something that you don't have to drive across the state to do.
Well, and we're really fortunate. We could drive somewhere else and find these meaningful learning experiences, but most of our community cannot. And I've had heard stories from lots of people in our community who, a lot of our children don't even really travel across the state, across the city, to the other parts of our city and to the other cultural attractions we even have right here within our community. So the importance of bringing a resource here really does make it accessible for those who are most at risk and really need these resources the most. And I think that is why Kim and myself really strove to seek this out and bring this to our community. It was naturally we were motivated by being mothers and having our own kids, embarking on this learning journey that is called life, but knowing that there's so many that really need this, and without it being more accessible and in your community, it's a resource that a lot of parents and teachers and children won't ever get the opportunity to tap into.
So whenever you first decided, you and the other mothers, to we've got to do something, was the museum idea one, or was there some really bad ideas before you landed on let's do a museum for the kids?
I think I would say that museum was always idea one.
Okay.
We had all had the joy of getting to see our children learn in these hands-on environments. And our state museum at this point was 5 years old, and we had gotten to see the work that they were doing statewide, and we laugh. We went to visit with them. We were going to get a checklist of how to build a children's museum. And so, right. And so that initial meeting, I think we were there for a couple of hours, interviewing or getting to know Susan Gerard, who's the president and CEO of the institution and has been with that project from the very, very beginning. And so we got to talking, and the museum has always done strategic planning and always known that their mission was to reach all of Mississippi's children. And that means how we bridged that geographical gap, I think was not certain at that time. But when we came with the support of our community and the same mission and values as the Children's Museum statewide, it made it possible for us to work to be a potential for a satellite campus, the first satellite campus.
And you say this better than I do, but after you presented the idea, or y'all presented the idea to the museum in Jackson, didn't they give y'all a goal to shoot, all right, try it out in your community, throw the idea out there, see if you can raise this amount, and if you can, we'll talk about it. But then y'all the community took off and you exceeded that goal by a long shot, right?
We did. I think when we had the opportunity to explore this as the first satellite campus, that was beyond our wildest dreams, to have the expertise of our statewide leader in early cultural education. We didn't want to blow this.
Right.
So we were challenged to go and raise some seed money to show that our community was committed to this resource and that our community was behind us all the way. And we set out, and within 2 months we had raised twice what that initial seed money number was, and with that, the statewide board voted to let us take that next step, which was a feasibility study, and so we were able to hire the Steyer Group out of Omaha, Nebraska, and they do these types of studies nationwide to really gauge the involvement and the commitment of the community for a particular project. And they said that they had never seen the kind of feedback that we got in our community, which was really encouraging, and
Yeah.
it did let us take that next step. Over 90% of the people were in favor of this resource, so it wasn't a shot in the dark kind of idea that we were going down the path with, but they realized the need for it as well. And then over 80% were ready to start that capital campaign right away and get this resource to the community of East Mississippi as quickly as possible. So
Meridian and the surrounding counties, they weren't messing around. They were all in. Let's go. Let's do this thing.
Whether they knew it or not, yes.
Yeah. So, you know, not everyone is going to be in agreement and all that kind of stuff. And I know that you had a little bit of flack whenever you decided to kind of present this. But I love how you didn't let that slow you down. You didn't, like, hear the negativity. You just saw the positive and you kept going. I mean, did you ever expect, like, to look out your window and see construction? I mean, 6 years ago, you know?
No, I don't even know if 6 years ago we realized that we would be bringing the state's leader to East Mississippi. I mean, it's hard to fathom what has been accomplished, and I think with any project there are challenges and struggles, and so it's been really encouraging to have our community come behind us at each path of this journey. And I mean, we did over a year just looking for a site for this, and we had such a committed group of volunteers helping us explore different sites, and there was a lot going on in the community. And so I think there's always that question of how much, how big do we dream, how much can we do, and it's really been inspiring to see how big our community has dreamed along with us, and it has been. It's been a total community effort. You've been a huge part of this. I mean, you've been it, and so we've got so many wonderful people who have really championed this in all unique ways, whichever strength they bring to the table, and I think that's why we see that beautiful building coming up on 22nd Avenue with windows going in and a roof on it and sheetrock going in.
I mean, it's real.
It is
there.
real. It is there.
It's
Like,
here.
I'm sure that's been a little emotional for you, you know, and your family. I mean, you spent many long nights up here with your team working, trying to figure out all the kinks. And I know you've learned a lot about construction, huh?
I think that construction is fascinating, and now I know why all children want to go into construction. It has been such a joy to learn and watch this process, and you learn a lot about things beyond just the realm of construction. There's a lot of logistics that go into this. There's a lot of navigating a whole bunch of different parties in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But we have enjoyed it, and we got up at the crack of dawn multiple times to go see all the concrete being poured with my children. I would wake them up and I'd be like, "We're going," and we go, and then we get Waffle House, and then they go back to bed for an hour, and then they go to school. So
That is so awesome. They will remember that for
yeah.
the rest of their lives. Like seeing what their
What
mother
yeah.
brought to this community. I mean, that's incredible. I'm very proud of you.
Yep. I would like to ask a question just to give our listeners and potentially any other moms out there that want to make an impact in their communities with something similar to this. And it kind of loops back around to Kristen's last question about, you know, overcoming that adversity and all. But so just like a high point, step by step, what was the total process? Like, the first thing was an idea. The second thing, you had to get some support from, you know, the state legislation, I guess, and then raise the money. what all steps did it take to get to where you're at now?
I don't know if we can list them all
It's just
out.
so
They
many.
kind of all they were kind of all going this way and that way all at the same time. But a big piece of this is getting the support of the community and that fundraising piece. So we talked about that this idea started in 2014, and so then it was early 2015 when we actually got to meet with the Children's Museum in Jackson, and then that fall we did the feasibility study. So I know this isn't like an exact checklist, but it does. I mean, these are important milestones that give credence to the project and legitimacy to the project, and I think making sure that we think through it from every angle was really important. And that's where the leadership of the statewide institution is, it's impossible to even put a value on what that has done. And that is why five years later, we're seeing this go up because of their resource and their history and their expertise. It's helped us to even jump some steps. So that feasibility study then kicked off our kind of, you call it a silent campaign. It wasn't very silent. You couldn't hold us back. But that is when you raise the money to get you to a threshold, to kind of get you almost to the end of it, to where then you really ask everyone to come in and help us finish it up, because we know that we're there and that we can make it. And so and then throughout that entire process, we looked for a site, and we did all the due diligence to find the perfect site that is that really meets the standards nationally for where is a safe spot for a children's museum. And this is all kind of in the vein of a children's museum, but and then we kicked it off to the public, and then so it's, I don't know if I can give you a whole bunch of, I did a horrible job trying to give you steps, and that may be why we came away with a satellite museum instead of a list of steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like each milestone kind of, all right, we got this done, all right, now we gotta do this. So each milestone just sent you to the next step.
Well, and some milestones sent us backwards. In our site selection process, we started looking really hard at a site in a park locally that's a little bit more, would have more acreage and a lot more of just a typical park environment where children and families can go and do a lot of things. And so we were exploring that, and we were fortunate that we had a bunch of champions kind of behind the scenes, also thinking about it in the scheme of the entire community. We've got some amazing things happening in downtown Meridian, and we had always kind of hoped to be in that synergy. But as a children's museum, there's certain things you've got to have. You've got to have acreage. You've got to have safe parking. You've got to have easy accessibility. And so we really did. Some champions helped us be able to make the site where we are a reality. But all that said, in the meantime, we were going down another path as well, exploring another site, and so we had to pivot and turn backwards. But we were thrilled to pivot and turn backwards.
Yeah, it all worked out the way it was supposed to.
It did.
So
it might have taken a little bit longer, but
yeah.
Was finding the ideal site, location, and getting all that figured out, was that one of your biggest obstacles that you had to overcome?
Oh, at the beginning, I'm going to say raising the money was probably the biggest. But the site was key. It was critical because for a lot of our donors, I mean, early on, you do have those visionary donors who can conceptualize what this is going to do for our community, what it's going to look like, and support it for different reasons. But for the most donors, they really want to see that concrete vision of what it's going to be, and you can't present that without knowing where your concrete site's going to be.
Yeah.
So that was a big piece. But this project ultimately is a $17 million project, and so we did we had a lot of people working really hard. Kristen, one of those, to help us raise the funds for this, and so that took an army. That took an army.
So I want to dive into the exhibit part. Tell us a little bit about the exhibits that are going to be in the museum. How many? Are there 5?
We've got about 10,000 square feet. It's a 25,000 square foot building, and we got about 10,000 square feet of exhibits. And we've got a STEAM gallery, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. We have a health and nutrition gallery, and then we have a literacy and arts gallery. And then we have something that we're really excited about called Wonderbox, which is like a makering, tinkering lab to really give that hands-on learning more in the STEM and STEAM realm. And then I think I was sharing with you when we got started, we were able to add a 25,000 square foot outdoor exhibit, which is called My Fantastical Backyard. And so that provides another, a lot of kids, we used to run down the street to the park, and that's not as common, and we don't have that luxury maybe as much anymore. And so to be able to provide a fantastical backyard for every child that comes, with adventures that await and a lot of pretend play to happen, and so we're excited. That's another piece of it.
So this garden is the exact same size as the museum. That's insane. Those kids are going to absolutely love that.
It's still hard for me to fathom it, because you walk in that building and the building keeps looking bigger and bigger as all the pieces come together. And then if you just think you flip this line that's right on the east side of it and just flipped it over that vertical line, we'd have a whole nother footprint of what we've got coming.
Wow.
But
just looking at these pictures, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah, it really is. This is going to brighten up downtown Meridian for sure.
Well, and our architects were very intentional with that. We love, we're working with Wereburner Allen, and they are just a really talented firm. They have all gone and worked all over the country, and they've really brought that expertise home in an effort to elevate Mississippi and do some really fantastic things in Mississippi. And our principal has spent a lot of time in Meridian and is married to a Meridian native. And so there's some historical things about Meridian that inspired his design. But a couple of things that I think are interesting. Our site is 8 acres, and the building that used to be there was like 100,000 square feet. And so now we've been able to pull it up closer to the street, so it's kind of an urban renewal, and it also is a little bit more inviting. You don't see all this sea of parking. It's all behind it and a lot safer for the children. But there's this story about when Meridian was being developed, and it was 2 individuals that were developing the city at the same time, and one was developing along the railroad tracks, and so parallel grid to the railroad tracks, and then one was developing on the north-south axis. And so the positioning of our building, if you look at it, it's kind of turned askew. Well, that askew is that it's on a north-south axis, but our roads are parallel to the tracks, and so we're kind of giving kind of a nod to both of the developers of the city. And if you look in the far distance, when you're looking at our site, you can see the 3-foot building, which is a pretty iconic building. If you're not from Meridian, it's not 3 feet tall. It is actually what we deem our kind of skyscraper claim to fame, but it is this beautiful Art Deco building that they're actually restoring into a hotel right now. So you can see it in the background, and it's the first building that's turned on the same axis that our building's
Oh,
turned.
okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's something that, I mean, if you don't tell people that, they're not going to know.
No.
There's a little hidden kind of
Little hidden
history
gem.
there. Yeah. So when is construction supposed to be complete? Supposed to be complete,
to
yeah.
be. Man, if we could just get those windows in there.
I know, right? We're waiting on the walls to go up.
Walls are there.
I'm just kidding.
We broke ground in September of 2019 and officially celebrated that in October. And so our team has been moving fast and furious, and surprisingly, we had the wettest spring ever. And so right now, I think that's just impacted our construction schedule just a little bit, but I am so impressed with our team. It really won't have too much of an impact. We're looking at maybe, we'll start seeing exhibits come by the end of this year.
Oh, wow.
And get installed, and then we'll be getting ready to open doors safely for children and
Yeah.
families in the spring of 21.
Well, congratulations, Liz. I know you've worked super hard alongside with many awesome people to help make this dream a reality. So,
Yeah, well, thank you.
yeah.
So, aside from the windows, has
Here
the
we go.
construction, I guess this is your first time you've really been like super involved with a big construction
Yes.
project?
Might be my last.
So,
I don't think so.
so far, you know, where you're at with the construction on the building, and I know you plan everything ahead of time, and I hope that the stars align. Looking back from, you know, to where you're at now, is there anything specific that sticks out that you would have done different, or something that you learned that you didn't know? I'm sure there might be a lot of that.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if anything, if we could have had just a little bit, this will sound odd, but a little bit more time. We had the opportunity, again, we had a lot of people working really hard to creatively fund this project, and one thing that we were able to do is we are in an opportunity zone, and so that is it's a way that you can leverage some federal resources and private resources to build up an area that is, well, if you've been down 22nd Avenue, you know.
Yeah.
A little bit. And so
That's it.
to revitalize an area of town. And so to do that, we had a team working late hours to get all the ducks in a row. And it was hard work. And then I guess it made it all worth it. And it did make it, on the flip side, you know, a little stressful as we were trying to work through some of the things that we were hopeful of, and we didn't maybe have as much time as we would have loved to fully think through, like, oh, that power socket would have been great if it had been right there.
Yeah. Little stuff like that. Oh.
But all in all, it's been, we have had a really great team working on it, so it's made it a joy. Fountain Construction has been the best partner we could have asked for. They got a great team working on it.
Yes, they do have a great team. We
They have a good team.
Same. Well, Liz, before we go, so we like to ask all of our guests if there's one piece of advice that you could give. So my question to you is, what would your advice be to those, you know, women, moms, not even just, but men, anybody that has an idea, has a dream, and not just talking the talk, but walking the walk? What is your advice on how to, like, just go after it, you know? You saw a need and you took action and made it happen.
I would say, don't get discouraged.
Yeah.
But I'd say you can't do it alone. You need a team, and you'll never hear no if you don't ask.
That's right.
So I think those are two things. People will surprise you. They want to be a part of something important like this, and so I would say surround yourself with those people who have skills that you don't have, and that also have the same passion, and then don't be scared to ask.
That's great advice.
Yeah, it is. All right, Liz. Well, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank
y'all
you.
have to follow MCM Meridian on Instagram and Facebook,
Yeah.
and stay up to date on all the construction updates and what Liz and her team are working on. And
You can see a lot of the exhibits that are under fabrication in Omaha, Nebraska, and see some insides of the building, and even a drone's view of the building from the
Oh,
outside.
that's awesome.
yeah.
So.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for being here, and for everybody out there listening, this podcast will be up in a few weeks, and we asked you Go give any feedback you may have for us. If there's someone you'd like us to bring on the show, let us know on the website at couplesubs.com. Check out our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We got Twitter now.
And YouTube.
And YouTube, yep. You gotta go check us out on YouTube. Thank you for all the support. And Liz, thank you for being on the show with us today.
Thanks.
Till next time.